Alrighty guys, it's Mrs. Cameron here, and today we are going to be looking at some ACT math practice. And if you're a student in my class, this is what we have been working on from our books at school. And if you've been absent, this is what you have been missing. Question number 1 says, 1 foot is equivalent to approximately 3,048 10,000 meters. If a building is 65 feet long, what is the length of the building in meters to the nearest length? So if 1 foot equals 0.3048 meters, 1 foot, they want to know 65 feet is how many meters? So 65 feet equals how many meters? So when we're going from big unit to a smaller unit, right? Because 1 is bigger than our decimal number, 0.3048. We are going to big to small, we multiply. When you're converting measurements, and we're going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, big to small, we're gonna multiply, right? So you're gonna multiply 65 times 0.3048. And I know this calculator here is slightly different than what we're using in class, but this is what I have software for at home. So this is what I've got. 3048, enter, and they want you to round the answer to the nearest tenth. There's a way to go into the mode and fix that, but if you just look at your answer choices, there's only one that's close, so that's going to wind up being our answer. Answer choice A for number 1. 19 and 812 thousandths. Number 2, to keep up with rising costs, a carpenter needs to increase his $30 per hour rate by 18%. What will be his new hourly rate? So when we are looking here, he's currently making $30 per hour. And they want to increase by 18%. So we want to multiply our $30 per hour times 100% of what he's making plus another 18% of what he's making. So that's 118%, right? Because it's going to keep that $30 per hour plus make an 18% increase. That's a pretty large increase in pay. I've never worked at a job where doing the same job I got an 18% increase in pay. So that's going to be $30 times 118, and we want to make this a percent. When I'm thinking of that, I think of percent to cents. So that'd be 118 cents. So I'm putting a decimal here. You might have another way that you remember, or you take this 118 divided by 100. There's a few different ways you can go, but for me, I think about cents. 30 or 30.00, the amount they're making, times 100% plus 18% would be 0.18. And enter. He's now making $35.40 an hour. Way to go, Carpenter. That's a nice increase in pay. Right? An increase was why we added here and percent to a decimal so we could put it on the calculator. Question number 3. Contributions to the school dance fund are made by each of 4 student groups according to the table below. What is the average dollar amount of the contributions made by the 4 student groups? How do we find an average? What do we do with those 4 numbers? Two steps to find average. Step 1, we're going to add them up. And step 2, we're going to, a big old fraction, that's your hint. Every fraction is a division problem. So add them up and then divide by how many numbers you added up. And there's 4 groups, and there's 4 numbers we added. So this can go right in the calculator without having to mess with the fraction. The fraction button, I'm just going to put my numerator in parentheses. 25 plus 40 plus 30 plus 15. Close my parentheses and divide it by 4 equals an average of 27 and 5/10, 27.5. That's it for number 3. Number 4, bus X travels 40 miles per hour for 2 hours, and bus Y travels 60 miles per hour for 1.5 hours. What is the difference in miles between the number of miles traveled by bus X and the number of miles traveled by bus Y? So we want to find out how many miles bus X goes and how many miles bus Y goes. And then we're going to find the difference. What does that mean, that phrase, the difference? Let's find out what bus X is doing. 40 miles per hour for 2 hours. What do you do with those 2 numbers? We're going to multiply them. And that's going to tell us how much bus X goes. And then we're going to take bus Y. Is going 60 miles per hour for 1.5 hours. I can rewrite that as 1.5. And again, what are we doing with those numbers to see how many miles bus Y goes? We're going to multiply it. And then we need to find the difference in those 2 answers. So first, let's go ahead and solve it out. 40 times 2 gives us 80. And then 60 times 1.5 is 90. And then you probably have your eyes on the answer already because you know what you're doing to find the difference. But while I've got you on this question, I just want to show you one more thing with the TI-84 calculators. When you go to put that that 1.5 hours in, if immediately going from mixed number to a decimal, it doesn't come to your brain because you're freezing up because you're in test mode and you're like, OMG, I'm so stressed of this, then you can go on the calculator here, and I believe it's alpha F1 and then option 1 right there. Let me click the 1 here. It lets me put in a fraction. So 1/2. And when I press enter, it gives me my answer as a fraction, or I can say, no, I don't want my answer to be a fraction. Put my answer as a decimal, option 2. Change my answer to a decimal, there it is. Or if you go alpha F1 option 2, you can put in your whole entire mixed number, 1 and 1/2 times 60. And we still get 90. It's just I want to make sure that you're familiar with how to put this in the calculator. And now finding the difference between 80 and 90. What's the difference? Difference is telling us to do what with the numbers? That is subtract. So none of these are negative, so we're just going to take the biggest number on top, our 90, and take away the 80, and our answer is answer choice F. And now we can continue rolling through to question number 2. And I know I'm going a little bit slow through these questions. If I happen to pick up the pace and go a little faster than you're comfortable with, please make sure you let me know that there's something that you want me to do again or you want to see in class. Please don't be embarrassed to ask questions. Question number 5 says, which of the following is a value of r for which r plus 2 times r minus 3 equals 0? And one of my students in class today immediately said, oh, I know how to make that 0. You just put in a -2. So because out of these choices here, right, when you say -2 plus 2 times -2 minus 3, that is going to be equal to 0 because what's -2 plus 2? You can check on the calculator. -2 plus 2 times -2 minus 3, enter. It is equal to 0. So my student in 7th period today, he was correct, and he was so much faster than how I was going to go and solve this. What I was going to have the class do, because my 6th period today gave me a challenge to see how many questions I can answer on our TI-84 plus calculators in class, just by using the calculator without writing out too much. So if you take this right here and change your r's to x's and say y equals, and just change that to x plus 2, oopsies, what'd I do? X plus 2 times x minus 3, and then you click on graph right here, we can see that our y, it equals to 0, right? That would be like our y. So this is what we put in the calculator. We said y equals x plus 2 times x minus 3, right here on our y equals. And then when we click graph, we see our answer. So we want to see when y is 0, what is x? And you can look right here on the graph. And when x is -2, oops, graph, trace. When x is -2, our y is 0. And another correct answer you can see on the graph here would be when x is positive 3, y is also 0, but positive 3 was not an option because, of course, 3 minus 3 is also equal to 0. So that's 2 ways to solve a question like this. So if you're trying to solve it the algebra way and plug in and you just get nervous while you're testing and you're not sure what to put in, go ahead and use your graphing calculator. Everyone taking the test on our ACT school day at our school will have access to a graphing calculator. Question number 6 says, in the parallelogram PQRS shown below, PS is 7 centimeters long. If the parallelogram's perimeter is 40 centimeters, how many centimeters long is PQ? And on this question, my eyes go straight to the most important word in the word problem. And what would you say the most important word sounds like to you? I'm going to go with perimeter. And what we want to find out is how many centimeters long is PQ. So this line up here, I'm going to call this X. And when I'm thinking about perimeter, I think about, well, what's the definition of perimeter? When I'm finding the perimeter of something, I'm doing something with the sides. This parallelogram has 4 sides, and perimeter tells you to add up the sides. So I know the perimeter is 40 equals to my 4 sides. And then another important word here is parallelogram. Being that my figure is a parallelogram, the definition of a parallelogram tells me that the opposite sides are congruent or the same, right? They look the same, they're the same. A lot of times on these standardized tests, if stuff looks the same, it's the same. Don't overthink it. So if this side over here is 7, this one's 7. If this side up here we're calling X, this one down here we're also going to call X. So 40 equals to 7 plus 7 for those 2 sides, and X plus X. And like I said, I'm in a challenge right now to answer as many of these questions as I can by using only the calculator and trying not to do too much math. So throw your math teacher instincts out the door, Mrs. Cameron, and just use the calculator. How do we get this to be 40, right? 7 plus 49 is going to be too much. 21 plus 21 is going to be too much. I'm going to come down here to H. Plus 13 plus 13, if X and X are both 13, right? And press enter right there. Bada bing, bada boom. It adds up to 40. I know that my X's line segment PQ has to be equal to 13 on the answer. And then we can continue to question number 7. In the standard XY coordinate plane, if the X coordinate of each point on a line is 5 more than half the Y coordinate, what is the slope of the line? In the standard XY coordinate plane, if the X coordinates of each point on a line is, I'm going to go right back to my 5th grade teacher strategies, right? X is, how do I write that? X is the equal sign. X is 5 more than half of the y coordinate, half of y. What is the slope of the line? Now, to find the slope, I need to solve for my y. If this was SAT and you were able to use the Desmos calculator, you could just type that right in and it would show you the slope. But we're using the TI-84 plus, and we can't just type it in like that because we always have to have the y isolated. So that's not going to be my method here. In order to get my y by itself, there's 2 different ways you can go for your first step. X equals 1/2 y plus 5. You can either get rid of the half first, right? What does that half of y mean? It means y divided by 2, right? What's the opposite of division? Multiply. So I can start by multiplying everything here by 2 for my first step. Multiply all of this by 2, and also multiply this by 2. That would give me 2x equals, distribute my 2, that cancels, y, distribute my 2, 2 times positive 5 plus 10. And immediately in class today, I had a student say, oh, I see the slope. And they were right. They had their eyes on the slope. If you've got it, great. I'm going to go ahead and finish solving for y. I've got one more step here to isolate my y, get the y by itself. I got a plus 10 with it. And how do we get rid of adding 10? I want to cancel it out to 0. So the opposite of plus 10 is minus 10. And I need to do that on both sides of my equation. So that gives me, let me write it over here. Just y is left on this side. And I'm flipping things around. 2x and minus 10. I can't subtract that because the 10 doesn't have an x. So y equals 2x minus 10. And this looks like our formula, y equals mx plus b, where your slope is which letter? Right? It's the m. So our slope is 2. And I said you've got another way to solve over here. If your first step wasn't to multiply everything by 2, then your first step would have been to get rid of this plus 5 first. So you would subtract by 5 on both sides of the equation, which would give you, need some space, x minus 5 equals 1/2 y, and then those 5's cancel to 0. And now again, right, what's half of y mean? It means y divided by 2. So to get rid of it, again, we're multiplying both sides by 2. And these, this half of y times 2 cancels each other out to just give us y equals, and now distribute the 2, 2x, and 2 times minus 5 is minus 10. Same thing, right? Y equals mx plus b. You've still got the same slope. Sorry, I might have failed my challenge here on number 7. I'm not exactly sure how to put that on the calculator to get the answer. Yeah, not sure. Okay, moving along to number 8. A rectangular garden has a length of x and a width of y. The garden has its length reduced by 3 feet and its width extended by 2 feet. What is the area of the new garden? Keyword, area. How do you find area? Area equals, we got some more keywords, length and width. Area equals length times width. And it says that the length is reduced by 3. Length x is reduced by 3. So what's the x and 3 doing together for the length? Reduced means it's subtracting. So you're out, you're out, you're out. And the width is extended by 2 feet. So my width, y, is extended by 2. Extended means we are adding 2. So you're out. And you're out. And now the only one where I haven't crossed out anything is J, and that is the correct answer. And I think for tonight, I'm just going to get 2 more questions in, and then in class tomorrow, we'll go a little farther. Question number 9 says, if x equals 3yz squared, what is y in terms of x and z? So step 1, I'm going to rewrite it. X equals 3yz squared, and we want to get the y. What is y? Isolated, y by itself. ACT just seems to love to do this on this practice test. So what is going on with the 3yz squared? What are all of these little things doing together? What's invisible? They're multiplying. How do we get rid of stuff that's multiplying? We cancel it to 1 with division. So I'm going to divide by 3z squared on this side. Whatever I do to this side of the equation, I have to do over here. My properties of equality, 3z squared, and then this 3 cancels to 1. This z squared over z squared cancels to a great big 1, and we're left with y equals x over 3z squared. X over 3z squared. Our correct answer is answer choice A. And then just one more question, question number 10 for tonight. In the figure below, what is the measure of angle alpha? So this missing angle up top. And if this angle over here in this corner is 55 degrees, this one is unknown. It says this side over here is 10 and this side over here is 10. If I have 2 sides that are the same on my triangle, what do we know about the angles across from those sides? Do they look the same? They are the same. We're always trying to prove in geometry, right, that stuff is the same. So now that I know 2 out of 3 of my angles, I can find my third angle because I know that in a triangle, my 3 angles in my triangle have to add up to the same number every single time. What do our 3 angles in our triangle have to add up to? Do you remember? If you don't remember, think about a special triangle that you remember your teacher talking about a lot. How about an equilateral triangle? All 3 angles are how much? How about a couple types of special right angles? You could have a 30, 60, 90, a 45, 45, 90, or that equilateral triangle, it was 60 plus 60 plus 60. And in our triangle, we have 55 plus 55 plus how much? And no matter what triangle we're talking about, it has to add up to 180 degrees. So how much more do we need to add to make 180 degrees? I know 55 plus 55 plus, let's take a look over here, 55 plus 55 will be 110. 180 minus 110, I need 70 more plus 70, enter, equals 180. So I know that my missing angle alpha up there, must be 70 degrees. All right, I hope that this has been helpful to you to look at these first 10 questions in this practice test, and we will continue working through this practice test tomorrow after Mrs. Cameron gets some sleep today. See you in class. Bye.